That's it.
I don't know if I'm disappointed or impressed.
I don't know either, but that's what it is. Okay, so basically we're live.
Good.
So the podcast is starting now. So you have to be interesting from now.
Oh no, so what was before this, all the jokes and everything were just don't matter.
That doesn't matter, that's not on the radio.
Aww.
So, welcome. If people are listening, this is Astrid. I'm not going to tell your age, or you're comfortable to let that out?
Well, it's my birthday next week.
No way.
Yeah.
How old?
42.
I wanted to say that, but I thought I'd let you say that. The only reason why I actually want to mention the age is because I did a little bit of research about Romania last night.
Okay.
And it's obviously important when you talk about Romania, or if you talk about history, it's about timelines. Because your government changed in 89. And you were born in
77.
77. So you had 12 years in communist Romania.
The worst 12 years.
Was that the worst time?
Yes.
Because I read about your dictator / president. He was involved for quite a long time, from like the 50s, 60s, I think.
Yes, but I think he became the head of the Communist Party and like that, the head of the state a bit later.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, yeah, he was, I think, groomed into politics for a while.
Yeah, similar to like Hitler. Like before he was Hitler, like he was involved in politics and for a long time, and then he finally got to the point where he could be the biggest arsehole in the world.
Yeah, exactly, something like that. Yeah. So.
And how, like, if Hitler is 10 out of 10 bad, how much would you say was your ex-president?
8.9.
Okay, he was real arsehole.
He was. I think, I don't know, in a way he was at the end of the communism, so certain things changed in the country the normal way. Like, for example, now people would say, yes, but he built, I don't know, the underground in Bucharest. It's like, yeah, the plans existed since, during 1930s. So certain things really happened because it was the time to happen, but certain things happened because he was an asshole. And also, I don't know, because I was a child, and you're right, trying to frame this, in a specific, like a timeline and the circumstances. We, like any good parent, I was quite shielded from a lot of things because, why would you could see how bad it was. There was no reason for your parents to also tell you, how bad it is. But also I felt it on my own skin when, we didn't have food, or you went into the shops and the only thing that you had was just bottled water. And, we had, I told you when we met last time, like one egg in the fridge.
I've told that story so many times to people. I'm like, this lady had one egg per month.
Yeah, exactly. For the family. So it's like, I don't know. I have to tell you, for the last couple of days, I also thought about what I'm going to talk to you, because like we chatted last time, certain things, they have been, 20 something years ago, but almost 30 years. But I don't like to think about them because it opens the floodgates. But on the other hand, if people have this rosy image of all the good things that used to happen, and it's not normal. And also, I mean, I see a lot, if we talk about international politics, like even in the United States, when people think, but it's not that bad, and people very easily start accepting slowly worse and worse things, and then you look back 20 years down the line, it's like, where did we start? It was not that bad at that stage.
Yeah.
So this thing of making a lot of compromises, and it's, let's put it like this, when the communist regime came to Romania, there were international circumstances. It was after World War II. It was with the Marshall Plan, with the spheres of influence of the USSR. And so there were a lot of things that did not depend on us. But also, I think I was talking to my parents, and they said in the 60s and early 70s, it was quite good. But then,
because I saw that you signed the Warsaw Treaty, something like that. So I was like, if you signed that, it means that you were a little bit involved in European politics in a good way.
Yes. Okay. Yes and no, but then again, being in that area of the world, it's complicated. Let's say, for example, Romania was divided historically into various provinces, and different provinces were under the influence or even under the rule of, well, depending where you were. If you were in the south, it was more the Ottomans. If you were in the east, if you were in the west. And there were quite a lot of wars that happened on the Romanian territory. But the Romanians were not really involved because it was, for example, between the Russians and the Ottoman Empire. But we were in the middle. But we also joined sometimes one way or another, and that's how we got our independence in long time ago. And so, but then what happened is our king was in fact descendant of a German family. So traditionally, of course, plus what happened between the two wars, there was quite a strong Nazi movement in Romania. They were called the Legionnaires. So Romania went into the Second World War alongside Germany against
the rest.
And then in 1944, they joined then the Russians and went against the Germans.
And was that just a strategic move that the Russians are closer and more dangerous than the Germans? Or did you realize that the Germans are doing...
I am
unsure.
How can I say? I am not very clear, because depending on who you speak to, when they say, no, the history is in fact not set. Every single time somebody discovers something, the history or the story changes a bit. So I think it was, again, circumstances. I mean, it was in August 1944, so it was quite late into the war. So it was already, how can I say, I think there was a feeling that the Germans were on the losing end.
Yeah.
But I think it was because of our relatively young king at that stage, Michael, who I think was very uncomfortable, to put it mildly, that what was happening. And so I think there were, again, political circumstances, legal circumstances, and then the Romanians just turned around. And so that's why, in a way, geography, being so close to USSR now, but also the fact that we went in the war one way and ended up in the other direction, I don't know how much was also punishment. So, and then there were elections after the Second World War, and the communists won, or this is the official story. And that's how they came into power. And then it was a really, really bad time for whoever was an intellectual, as like university degrees, or whoever was working in any kind of state organization like police or military, or they kind of almost like put everybody in, like a political jail and things like that, regardless of, I mean, they weren't stupid in the sense that if you're educated and if you can think for yourself, of course you realize things are not right.
Yeah.
So they try to make people shut up by just removing them from any kind of social life, political life. And then I think the Communist Party, I stand under correction, kind of declared themselves the only party, legal party in the country. So we were a one party country like USSR, and in fact all the communist countries from the Eastern Bloc. So. And
I read last night that they were really good at censorship.
Yes.
And they were very tough on the media and anybody that spreads information.
From some of the let's call them stories that we found out after 1989, is that different countries had their own areas of specialization in the communist bloc, and Romania was in fact exactly what you say. They were the people with that was what they were specialized in. Turning stories, and nothing ever bad happened, and
a lot of bad stuff happened.
But you also don't know. That's the thing.
But we know bad stuff happened, but not the specifics about it. But it is classified as genocide.
Yes. I mean, it was.
That's how bad it was, because the terms that they use everywhere is genocide.
Genocide, yes.
And you have to kill quite a lot of people
of course,
to get to the term genocide.
But I think it's also not only in what people might think that happens in, let's say, in Africa. Let's take it as an example, when genocide is really taking people, lining them up and shooting them. Things like that also happen.
Yeah.
But also by the fact that, you starve your own people, and I don't know what are the, how can I say, sensibilities of your listeners, but for example, I don't exactly remember the name, but it was either early 70s or late 60s. Any form of contraception was illegal, and women were supposed by the age of 40 to have at least 4 or 5 kids,
so that they can work as laborers
or whatever. I don't think they were thinking that far.
Yeah.
And a lot of women died, having illegal abortions, because, I mean, I'm sorry, but you're not a cow that, just have to. So, I mean, I even remember my mom was saying she was so happy she had rubella, and if you're pregnant and you have rubella, that the children, it affects the unborn.
What's rubella?
Rubella is I think it's part of the MMR vaccine nowadays, which is measles, mumps, and I think the R is for rubella. It's a contagious disease.
I'm nodding my head. I have no idea what you're talking about.
But it is a contagious disease, and if the woman contracts it and she's pregnant, the child gets congenital malformations. So it was one of the few cases in which you would get a medical certificate to say if you are pregnant during this particular time, you can legally get an abortion.
Okay.
And she said, when she got rubella as a 30-something-year-old woman, is like, ooh, I can have a legal abortion. I mean, it was not about the abortion, it's about the fact that there are no condoms, there are no contraceptives whatsoever.
Yeah.
Now, that was terrible in itself, like the women that died and the children that were born, that basically they were born, they just happened, it's not because their parents necessarily planned for them but now what happened is 30 years down the line, this population boom. What happened to those children? They were in their 20s, 30s, now they need a job, they need somewhere to live.
Yeah.
You end up from a country that had maybe a population of 5-8 million to a country that has 25 million, but no infrastructure or anything to support it. So, but on paper everything was fine because everybody gets a job and everybody gets a house. No, they didn't.
Yeah.
But then the communist regime fell, and now the truth is really facing you in the sense that, our unemployment is so high. Yes, because the number of jobs didn't increase. Now, 20 years ago, you had one person to do a job. Now you have 4 or 5 or 6, but there's still only one job because... So
the economy didn't change. The population
exactly. If anything, the economy went down.
Yeah.
So, but people still remember sometimes. Oh no! But during the communist regime, it's like, no, people, you just remember the glossy part.
Yeah.
My dad worked in constructions, and they were building blocks of flats, but they were just, to give to the youngsters. To be given by the government, but they were I don't even know if they're like safety issues or they were just building, and then they had this thing that during summer they would build all the outside, and in winter they would build the inside because at least you don't have to work you know,
Yeah.
because the winters are difficult in Romania. It's really, really cold.
Is it similar to Poland? Like minus 20
yes,
snow?
maybe Poland is a bit colder because it's more up north than Romania, but
similar.
minus 20 is not unheard of.
And then when those gale winds come through
exactly,
and there's snow,
exactly,
it might be like minus 5, but then
but
once those winds come,
so I mean that's why for me I don't understand how people only remember.
Is your parents still alive?
No.
Okay.
No. My
people that are alive,
yes,
that were living during that time, do you speak to them now and they still remember some positive things?
Sometimes it depends on who you talk to, because of course generally life wasn't great by no means, but people made do.
Yeah.
So the better you could make do, the more I think you remember only specific things. How can I say? And it's weird that I'm giving this example, but they said that after a woman gives birth, she doesn't remember, so the body is set in such a way that you do not remember the pain that you went through, because if you did, you never have another child ever again. So I think our minds try to help us and protect us by only remembering certain things. But it depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
But of course, this also now my problem is, if you go back to Romania, you speak to the young generation, like even younger than me, which is of course
very young.
Which is very but I mean no thank you. No, but let's put it like this: if they're in their early 30s, it means that they were 3-4 years old when the communist regime fell. But they hear the stories of their grandparents and they have this rosy image of how it was, but of course they didn't really live in that time.
Yeah.
So
and there's parallels with apartheid South Africa.
Yes.
Like I was born in 85, so 94. As a 9-year-old, I didn't grow up with a lot of stuff. Plus, I grew up in Stellenbosch, which was a little bit different than certain areas.
Yeah.
Plus, I think the closer you got to 94, there was already a transition. It wasn't like maybe the Berlin Wall breakdown and one day it's different. And I think it's similar to my Polish wife that was born and raised in Warsaw in Poland. It's also, she was born in 87. So I speak to her grandmother. Her grandmother died a month ago, but she was part of the Warsaw Uprising. There's been a book written about her. Like each year they have ceremonies and they invite her, and she doesn't want to go because it's like, I was just trying the best I can at that point. Yeah. There's nothing glamorous about it. And then you hear the stories and you walk around and you see the bullet holes in the prison on the outside and the memorials. But it's very difficult to comprehend if you weren't living in that. Because I'm sure, I don't know, like, what type of fear did you have day to day, or did you like anxiety if you see a policeman or soldier? Do you suddenly like?
No. Okay, let's put it like this. Romania was definitely a police state, but it was not a very visible one. People were just afraid. You had to watch what you were talking and in front of who. And there were people telling on each other, but I mean, let's say in a group of friends, maybe there were 2 or 3 that were telling on each other without knowing about, the other ones. Okay.
But like, what type of stuff would they say? Let's say me, you, and 3 other friends sit, and then you're like, fuck, I'm so hungry, this government of ours is shit.
Oh yeah, no.
That is something that
you would not say.
You can say like nothing negative about the government.
Yes, yeah. Let's put it like this: you don't have to sing their praises.
Yeah.
But you should not say anything negative about it.
I think that police officer Simon should do a better job.
Oh no.
Like, I don't like him.
No.
Like, you can say nothing that you think.
No. How can I say? It's almost like everything is nice and fun, and we'd rather talk about the family and the kids and the last book that I read and so it's not
and the people that tell on you, do they get a reward? Like
I don't know.
they'll
They
get
must. The thing
5
is, they
eggs
must.
or 10 eggs.
I don't know. They must have gotten something, because I can't believe that everybody was just psychologically damaged and got, satisfaction from just telling on you.
And sometimes your family members will tell on you.
Okay, we all try to think that not.
Yeah.
But it depends on the family. Okay, so let me tell you about my family. We definitely fell under the intellectual category. On my mom's side, her dad was coming from a long line of people that went to university. Let's put it like this: I'm the 6th generation that goes to university. On my dad's side, the same. Not rich families, but people that went and studied. And also very small families, like 1-2 children at the most. My mom's dad was a policeman, because he was the youngest child of the family, so they couldn't afford to send him to study law. So he started working, and he was a policeman. But then, unlucky him, he was a policeman during the Second World War.
Mm.
And he was sent with the Germans to Odessa, which is now in Crimea.
Mm.
And he was already married to my grandmother. My mom was 2 years old, maybe. But then, because of this, when the communist regime came into power, he was arrested because he said no, but he has what is it called? They had all these ways of putting, like, you have quenched the communist movement, and my mom said, she was 12 years old by then. Said she was at a part of the trial, and there were even people from the communist group in that area, and they said no, but he was always a nice person, and it didn't matter. Mm-hmm. They really needed to remove everybody. So he had to go to prison for quite a long time, and because of that, my mom couldn't go to university, because her dad was a former, by that stage, political prisoner.
Almost like a war criminal.
Exactly. So that affected my mom quite a lot. She was a really, really smart woman. She was very intelligent. She was very well read, but she could not go to university. She was not allowed to. My dad, on the other hand, could, because of, again, his family situation was not that difficult. But one of his cousins ran away from Romania and moved to France. And these people were still trying to contact kind of their families. And we don't even, I don't know, maybe my parents found out that apparently this cousin of my dad tried to contact him at some point. And then my dad ended up on the radar of the secret police. So I didn't know at that stage, but for a very long time, every Thursday afternoon, I was going with my mom to watch a movie. It was the time when my dad was under interrogation every single week. And it was one of those things like, for what? You know everything that we do.
Mm.
Do you think I'm going to change my story? But then, because of that, then they brought in my grandfather, which was in fact my mom's dad, and said, yeah, but you were a political prisoner and you had all these activities. And my grandfather said, I'm an old man. He was born in 1912. By then, he was in his 70s.
Mm.
He said, I don't know what you want from me. Don't you think that, according to you, I have paid my dues to the communist regime? And they threatened him. He said, here you either live with your hands bound or with the hands on your chest. So basically, they told him, well, we can either send you to prison or you're gonna die.
Mm.
So, and then my mom also went for interrogation, but apparently my mom, being my mom, just completely lost her shit and started yelling at those people. And they said, you're insulting the communist regime. We can, at least fine you, if not send you for a trial. And my mom said, well, we don't have money.
Yeah.
So, but these are things that I found out much later. So,
like, at which age did you find that out?
maybe when I was 14 or 15 years old.
Okay.
So it was like 2 or 3 years after the communist regime fell when people started feeling more comfortable talking about things like that. But I mean, of course, when I said that as a child, we were protected.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I was at that stage maybe 10 years old. My mom wasn't going to tell me that my dad might not come back, pick us up from the movies because in fact they sent him to prison. And what they used to do at that stage, they didn't want to have this political aspect to their policing, let's say. So they would fake you a criminal trial.
Okay.
Or not a criminal as in like you killed somebody, but like you were trying to steal money from your job. Or so they would have ended up being trumped up charges.
Yeah.
But they would make then a very public display of delivering justice and stuff like that. Luckily, nothing happened
to your dad,
to my dad, or to my family. Following those things, but I can't think what my parents have been through during that time, and also thinking of me, because apparently my mom told the guys from the secret police, isn't it enough that I couldn't go to university? Now my child, which is like 3 generations after the war, now you're going to ruin her life as well. So.
And like, I don't know if you interrogation technique.
I don't want to.
You don't want to consider that.
I don't want to know. I don't think that by that stage, especially at the end, let's put it like this. I don't think my dad was harmed, or my mom or my grandfather, because I think they were so good at psychological damage that because there was no reason to physically harm them. Definitely not at that stage.
But probably a lot of threats, like if you don't do this, maybe your daughter or maybe your brother or sister, I
can only speculate,
and
because
you don't even want to think about that.
Exactly. I mean,
the last 5 minutes I've got just like goosebumps.
No.
It's like it's
sorry. It's
this is why I got you here. I think it's important stories.
I know not everybody has been through this, so I can't say, of course, I have very strong feelings about things like this because my family and myself, even in my innocence, have been through this. But not everybody has been through something like that. So,
because it's not funny, but curious, interesting. There was a movie with Tom Hardy that I said to you long time, like a few years ago, called Child 44, and I didn't like the movie that much, and then 6 months ago somebody gave me the book, and I read that book over a weekend, and I got like really deep into it, and the way they explained living in Russia, having this police state, communism, dictatorship, I really got into an idea how it was.
Yeah.
And I gave the book to my dad, and I said to him, like, you'll love it. And he said, like, he couldn't read the book. It was too difficult for him.
Yeah.
And it's just really intense. And it's like you can't be yourself.
No,
it's part of our society today. It's like you want some type of clothes, a type of watch. Yeah. Everyone wants 20 sunglasses, the shoes.
No.
You want to be able to express yourself. It's like Pussy Riot, the band.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
They're always in jail because it's like they're not allowed to express themselves. And it's not like we take it for granted because we're all born. It's like I'm not born into royalty, so I can't really. But it's just difficult for me to think about how some people grew up. And what I asked you last time is it difficult to live, let's say, in South Africa or in a democratic country and hear people complain about traffic and all this petty stuff when you grew up with all of these difficult things?
No, because I would be a fool to say that the things that I've lived through didn't make me who I am. But also, you have to kind of learn your lesson and move on. I'd rather appreciate what I have. And also, it's one of those... I don't want to end up saying, well, you wanted cars, now you have to suffer the traffic. It sounds a bit stupid.
But it is what it is.
It is what it is. That's the thing. Because also, I lived in Romania until 2001.
Yeah.
So I do have issues with the traffic. I'm going to tell you now.
Do you ever complain about traffic? Or do you complain about...
The thing is, we have public transportation in certain countries. So it's one of those, if you don't want to suffer the traffic, then get to use the bus.
Yeah.
But here there are no alternatives. So, okay, so in at the end of 89, I was almost 13 years old. Then I went to, school, high school. Then I went to university. So I did live in Romania in the times of change. And some years were great and some years were not great. And then people, we had elections and then people voted wildly because, anything but what used to be. And then they went back thinking that, okay, better the evil that. So, it's not... But the point is, the country went on regardless of the
past.
Of the past, and we got a lot of help from the other European countries, but also at some point we were told, guys, it's 20 years later, move on.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying you cannot waste the lessons of history, but you have to move on and be careful not to repeat them. But also, you can't live in the past.
Yeah.
I enjoy being in South Africa. It's beautiful. I have a decent life. I'm not saying that if I wasn't in Romania, I wouldn't have it either.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to start, preaching to the people that if you only knew what I've been through. Everybody has been through a lot of difficult things, and you cannot, impose your...
It's all relative.
It's all
to
relative,
everyone.
exactly. I do have this issue when people start, try to tell me what great communist regimes are or whatever, because it is their idea of how it was. Remember I told you I have a friend that went to Australia and she's South African, and the Australians were trying to tell her how apartheid was, and said, listen, come on, I lived there.
Yeah.
You're telling me what you think it was.
Yeah.
So
in some of the theory in the book, like I studied political science at university, and when you read the theory in the way that it was intended, like Marxism or something, I'm like, that's quite a nice concept, but it's obviously the way it's implemented.
Of course, but that's the thing. And also I think we have to realize that when some people put this political theory on paper, it doesn't mean that they meant it to be implemented in the real life, or maybe they were smart enough to realize that this is what I'm writing. It doesn't mean that it is going to work. If you already go back hundreds of years ago, about utopia and writing it down and somebody taking that book and say, let's implement it. It's not the same thing.
Yeah.
You still deal with people.
Because it's like affirmative action and black economic empowerment. Again, being at university, studying politics, and then we did human resource management, and human resource management is the implementation of affirmative action through recruitment and selection. And I had to do 2, not theses, but like smaller projects on it. And in theory, affirmative action is amazing. It's really important for the development.
Of course.
But it's the way that it's implemented.
Of course.
Plus, my thing is, I lived in Europe for 6 years. I came back to South Africa. I'm 28 years old. I learned so much and I feel like I can do so much. And then I started job hunting and I'm like, I would love this job and I would be amazing. And it's like, I can't apply. And it's like, all these theories don't, like you say, consider the emotional, psychological impact.
I don't remember where I read it, but it was something like even the laws are only as good as the people that enforce them.
Yeah.
So you cannot take the humans out of the equation.
Yeah.
That's how you end up then with sci-fi movies that are very creepy, but also think like, taking all willpower away, and no, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Do you miss anything from old so before we get to maybe that, like something that you said last time that I also found interesting is you guys did not have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
We did.
Or you did have that. And was it as effective? Like, because it's famous for being effective in South Africa, or it helped a lot. Did it help you guys for that?
Okay, so it wasn't exactly called that. What happened is the people basically wanted to have access to the archives of the secret police. Maybe some people wanted to basically find out who told on them, but also to find out especially what happened, let's say 20 or 30 years before that, when people were just disappearing, when it was the time of the political prisoners and things like that.
Because I think Russia had the Lubyanka or something like that, jails and prisons.
They had a lot. I mean, one of my great uncles was in Siberia for, I don't even remember how many years. He came back on foot.
From Siberia to Romania.
Yes. I mean, the only thing that my grand aunt knew about him from time to time, that he's still alive. And then at some point he showed up, at the door. It's like, I still remember him. I mean, I was a child when he died, and he was such a nice person, in the sense that going through this stuff didn't make people violent and cruel, and going through this stuff, in fact, gave them a much more, I don't know, a much more quiet take on life. And so that's why I don't even know how much they never said, they never told the stories, but you could see I don't know, it's almost like they turned into almost the best version of themselves,
almost like saints.
Exactly, like floating through life. And
it's just interesting how little self-pity there is from some of these people.
Yeah.
I'm like it, and I find that fascinating. And even what you said earlier, just let the past be the past and just move on. Because my podcast with Emmanuel the other day, that came from Congo to have a better life, I'm like, what makes you think like that? Because some people will agree with you, just move on, but they can't. Be it I'm stuck in old relationships. I have this problem, like I sometimes move to Europe and I'm like, fuck, I really miss that from Africa. Or then I come to Africa and I really miss that. What makes you able to just move on? Do you know?
Okay.
And I'm wondering, are you genetically stronger than some people because your family survived such hardships?
Maybe. I don't know. If I think of the shit that we used to eat at some point, I think my stomach must be, made of, I don't know, steel. Sorry. No, but okay. But moving on and making peace with it is not the same thing.
Okay.
So I blame that on my mother. Like forgive and forget. No.
Never.
Never forgive. Never forget. But it doesn't mean you're not going to move on.
Even with bad relationships, never
forgive
and forget.
Never forgive, never forget. Because then why did you live through it?
Yeah.
In the sense that, but it doesn't mean that you don't move on. It's just, it exists. It's there. You have to accept it.
Yeah.
It happened.
It influences you. Exactly, it defines you.
It defines you, or it makes you part of it. It is part of who you are. It's part of your history. It shapes you a little bit. It leaves a dent, or but then just move on. So that, and then it's one of those that you then access it when necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved my mother dearly. She's, I mean, I also I have from her this thing that I don't have idols or people that I aspire to be, but if I can.
Who would you have dinner with? No one, like my friend.
My mom, my mom.
I don't care about Nelson Mandela.
Yeah, but also it's like if when people say, "Oh, you're so much like your mother," yes, please.
Yeah,
I would really thank you. I would really like to be like her. I mean, she was a very, very straightforward, very. Very strong moral compass, a very loving but very, disciplined, and I loved her to bits. She was smart. She was my mom, you know. But there are certain things that, you know, in a way I learned them from her because they were part of her personality and they were part of what happened to her. To me, it happened much less than it happened to her because of the time that when you know, she lived compared to when I live. But I kind of take them, I'm doing it because my mom said it and I believe her, and then it kind of got ingrained in my personality as well. So yeah, so, you know, do not mess with me. I will not take revenge or anything, not to that point, but it's like, if you think I'll ever forget, no.
So if you had a different mom or a different dad, maybe you would not be as healthy in your mind and in your life than you are now. Do you think?
I think so. I mean, I think it has to do with nature, you know, the genes and everything, but also the nurture part, you know, plays a really, really big role. And I'm not saying that everything that I've learned from them or the way I've been shaped by, you know, by my family is always the best way to go about it. I mean, for example, I know it's gonna make me sound like a bit of a psychopath, but I have issues with empathy sometimes.
Yeah.
And it has to do exactly like you said, with if you only knew what I've been through.
Yeah.
But, you know, with interaction with my friends, and then at least I can accept that there are other ways of looking at things, and then I am, you know, when people are happy, I am happy for them. When people are, so it's not lack of empathy completely, but I do have this a bit more harsh take on,
just get on with it.
This is nonsense, exactly. Just get on with it.
Plus, it's a bit like, if you watch this, like Rich Kids of Beverly Hills, and their telephone breaks, then everyone's like, oh, poor you. And it's like, you need to have a real problem. And I have something similar, like, because of the life I've lived and the life that I live, like, I go through certain experiences that other people don't. And when people come to me sometimes with some problems, I'm like, I will give you opportunity to express yourself, and I will tell you, I'm really sorry to hear that. But I'm not going to allow you to feel sorry for yourself, because, and I also don't have that like, oh, shame. It's like, yeah, I feel bad for you, but like 2 out of 10, like not 6 or 7 out of 10, because it's like, fuck. Like, I'm not going to go through also the experiences that I've gone, but it's like the one thing, like, I haven't really told people this, like, I was part of I'm still part of like an institution, organization. And I met this guy that came out of jail after 25 years after murdering someone in the war in Angola. And I tried to help this guy to settle back into society. And we formed a type of relationship. But he had like a GPS on his foot. And he found a new girlfriend, and they were walking around, and at certain points he has to be in some places, and he was on his way back to the house, and he was running a bit late, so his GPS went off, so the police came to pick him up, and they put him in the back of the van, and he thought they're going to lock him up for the rest of his life. So he took his knife and he just cut his throat in the back, because he's like, fuck that, I'm not going back. But then they administered first aid, and then the first person he phoned was me. And I'm like, now I have to go to hospital and go help this guy to feel better about himself. So now he's sitting, and he's under police protection. So, and now I'm talking to this guy, and I'm like, that's not a real normal situation for most people to go through. And you know, so I feel bad for that guy, that you feel like the healthier option is, so somebody comes to me and it's like, you know, I have a flat tire, somebody stole my laptop. I'm a little bit like, I'm sure you have something similar.
But it's true, and unfortunately, I mean, I make this joke with some of my friends when I can't choose between two stupid things, and then you kind of look at yourself and it's like, first world problems. You know, it's like, I wish I had these problems all the time.
Yeah.
So, but Yeah, well,
we're all different and we all grow up.
Exactly.
You can't blame other people for having these problems.
But also one of my best friends, she's Italian, but they live in South Africa for a very long time, and she has 2 sons, and one of them was bitching and moaning at her about something about his phone, that his time he didn't have airtime, but she was driving, and he told her, no, but just pull over and just make the transfer. And I tell him, because she was driving, so he was on speakerphone, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Honestly. And then, she puts the phone off and she turns around like, you'd be such a good Italian mother. And I'm like, yes. So it's amazing how sometimes small things make you happy, but I sometimes hear my mother through my own voice when I say certain things. And I'm like, Mom, you've done a good job. I don't know that if that's what you intended to do, but that's great.
And how democratic is Romania now? Like, are they in a good place?
Depends.
Infrastructure, economy, poverty, unemployment.
Okay, so a lot of Romanians work in Western Europe. So if you go to Italy or Spain, Romanian is like the second most spoken language in those countries, because Romanians felt like a really brotherly feeling towards Italians and Spanish, so they moved there.
Why do they have that brotherly feeling?
We all speak more or less the same language.
Okay,
and it was
it's like
easy
part of the same family.
Yes, yeah, it's the Latin.
And then the Slavic countries have their ones.
Yeah, exactly. But also, I think Romanians felt very, comfortable going there. Not everybody to work, some people to do some bad things, but a lot of people living there now are just, having a decent life, and but now what they do, they send money back. So there is a lot of economy in Romania that is not in fact based on something that is produced in the country.
Yeah.
So it's like you go to
you have a car, but the car wasn't financed from money made within the country.
Exactly.
Like somebody sent it to you.
Exactly. Or somebody sent you money, or
they stole a car and sent it back to Romania.
we would never admit that, ever.
Because the Romanians have an interesting reputation around.
Yeah, we're rather infamous, yes.
Yeah.
No, but so that's why, for example, even you go to one of these small, sleepy towns, and there's a lot of shops and people are buying, and it's like, with what? There is no economy here. Almost like they said, no, but do you think that this money is not made here? So the Romanians, I think, have a better life overall than the economy would justify up to a certain point. But we are part of the European Union since 2007. We have a lot of freedom of movement. There have been a lot of, European investments. Our government is still not always the most honest. So,
and the European Union actually gives a lot of money to developing countries. It's like, you want to start a business? Well, here's a little bit of money.
Okay, yeah. So
there's property.
But also, up to a certain point, the country is moving on regardless of who is in the government, because we are part of a bigger thing. But of course, the problem with the government is that they have in their hand the big decisions. Like they were making a joke, very bad joke, but it is true. A kilometer of freeway in Romania is more expensive than if you try to go from Earth to the moon per kilometer. So it's cheaper to send somebody 1 kilometer towards the moon than to build. So that's where there is a lot of corruption. Everybody's still for themselves, but there's a lot of things that are moving on, regardless. But yeah, I think, I don't know, it's...
Would you ever move back?
Not if I can't help it.
If you had the decision, you would never go back?
No,
Do you have family and loved ones over there?
Not very close family. My closest family that is still living there is my My cousin, in fact, moved to UK relatively recently. But yeah, no, I wouldn't. If I was ever to move back there, it would be in one of the big cities. I'm coming from a small town.
And the capital is?
Bucharest. Bucharest is but it's a massive city. I would rather move more towards Transylvania. It's a bit more, let's call it civilized.
Are you guys famous for pretty ladies? Because there is some...
Be careful what you're saying now.
I will be very careful.
Because there's apparently some Romanians working at Mavericks.
So let's talk about the image and also the morals and principles and work ethic. But the stereotypes, is it true? Like a lot of pretty ladies, a little bit dodgy over Europe. Are all those stereotypes true about Romanians?
I am not sure. The thing is, I never really lived in Europe outside Romania, except for a year in Belgium, but I didn't go from Romania there. I was coming from South Africa. So I didn't really live in Western Europe
so you can't
ever.
say.
So I can't say.
It's like the Albanians. They have a very, like, if you meet someone from Albania, it's like you have a like certain expectation from them. Because it's like what I found interesting from moving to like Poland, like you'll go to like a little shop, like an off license that they have in England. Like here we have Spar, Checkers, Pick and Pay, but these small little shops, which is at the underground, and then there's Playboys and like naked magazines, and I'm like, the way sex is seen in Europe has always been different. But it's not only that. It's like some countries, crime is seen in a different way. It's more like a survival mechanism, and so it's interesting to see how we had a security guy that was from Kosovo, like ex-military. So the way people grew up, it's fascinating to see how it shapes them to be the person they are, and it allows them to do stuff that maybe from my background it doesn't allow me.
No, for example, that you brought up now, for example, people's view of crime. In Romania, it's, let's put it like this, or the how can I say, the social circles. I've been, crime is bad, and being poor, that cannot justify it, for example. It's, I don't know, this is something, and to me it's difficult to speak in South Africa about this, because people always say, but you don't understand. There are countries that are poor where there still is no crime. We're poor, we're in this together. I don't understand why, like, for example, this thing of blaming the victim, that like my handbag is there and somebody will walk past and will just pick it up, and I'm like, why? Nobody was there. But it's not yours. I was so shocked, pleasantly shocked. I was in Romania a couple of years ago, and I was having coffee at the coffee shop, and at the table next to mine there were two ladies that were having a chat, and at some point, I think they were working on something. They had the laptop on, and they were talking. And at some point I look and they're gone, but everything is still there. The laptop is on the table, the handbags, I'm like, they just went to the bathroom. And then they came back. They did not expect those things not to be still there. It's like, yes, then there are pickpockets, but violent crime is something that is really, and the fact that it's almost so normalized. It's almost, people got desensitized about it. It's not normal. It's like, like we were bringing up having your laptop stolen. I had 2 of mine stolen in time.
In South Africa. And then, different stages, and then the policeman comes and says, but there's crime in other countries as well. Really? This is how, you respond? You respond, and you're the people that are supposed to enforce the law. This is not acceptable.
It's not acceptable. There's crime in other countries too. Excuse me? No mentality.
Because we spoke about this, we'll get into I'm sure people say like you can't have an opinion because you didn't grow up here, but I find like my wife, she has a more objective outlook on South Africa because she is a foreigner.
It might sound more insensitive, because you have an outsider's look.
Yeah.
But you also don't have those.
It's not so biased.
Exactly.
And the topic we talked about last time, which I find fascinating, is how South African people will, if you say, yeah, but this was stolen, this is really not cool. And I would sometimes reference, it's like at university, when you say something, you have to substantiate it with references, because you have to compare the thesis.
Yeah, you need to bring some...
So when I say like the crime is not that bad, for example, I lived in these countries. Yeah. I lived in London, and if you threw in Westminster city centre a cigarette on the floor, like you would get a £50 fine. Yeah. And then I come back to South Africa where my brother there was an attempted murder on him for a gang initiation. And then people were like, well, he wasn't supposed to walk in that street at that time of night. And I'm like... And stop complaining about how bad it is. I'm like, so if everyone has this opinion, and people are very sensitive in South Africa, like you're not allowed to say how bad it is here and don't compare it. I'm like, there is a balance there. But I don't know if you find it similar. No,
definitely. And two of my, let's say, experiences that were the most enlightening for me and for the other people involved were... Last year and 2 years ago, I had the opportunity to go overseas for conferences with two of my students. So 2 years ago to Spain, and last year also to Spain, but we spent some time, like a day and a half in Paris. And both these students have never traveled overseas. And I remember, of course, you're there for a short period of time. You walk in the street at 3 o'clock in the morning because you just wanted to see the lights on this cathedral and things like that. And the question is always, is it safe? It's like, not everywhere, not all the time. But if you're in the center of Barcelona and there are people having fun, and it's safe, but it's safety in numbers because there's people everywhere. So I still remember. So the student that I went with last year, I told her, just be careful, about the pickpockets. And she said, you said there is no crime. And I said there is no violent crime. Like these people are not stupid.
Pickpockets is not crime for us.
No, but also it's
if
like,
I was only so lucky.
No, because also I told her, they will try to steal your whatever you have in your bag, but they will not stab you for that. So yes, it's still bad, but it's a crime of opportunity, you know. But also I still remember, walking around during the night looking for a place to have a coffee, but most places were closed, and you kind of knock on the window. It's like, can we have a coffee? And they said, okay, it's closed, but we didn't clean the coffee machine. And so it doesn't matter, you're there, and then maybe you're the only people on the street. It's fine. Yeah. It's but seeing, the expressions like, let's just go, and it's like, but there's nobody there. It doesn't matter. It's like, you can live like this as well. Yes, there are dangerous areas and there's places where you will think twice, but here it looks like, I work at the university and I live down Dorp Street. If the sun sets, I think twice before walking down Dorp Street. Dorp Street has restaurants. Dorp Street has coffee shops. But there are areas where there is nobody.
So if anyone's listening, because I found out recently I have listeners in different countries. And so we live in Stellenbosch, which is a very picturesque town, one of the most famous towns, oldest towns. And Dorp Street is basically the main road. So you can't even walk down the main road at some times of the day.
Maybe you can, but I'm not going to risk it because there's nobody. But if there were people on the street, then it didn't. There is light, there is activity at the restaurants, and
but we have 160 trees where people can hide behind.
Yeah, but again, it's like, honestly, it's just a bloody tree, shame. but you have this thing of like. But
it's like, what's the interesting thing about crime? It's Anya was mugged in Warsaw, I think 4 or 5 years ago at a bus stop. And they stole a telephone.
Okay.
She's never been mugged in South Africa in 5 years that she lives here. So statistically for her,
Yeah.
Poland was more dangerous than South Africa. However, we live in constant awareness of crime here and almost not fear, but she a lot of times has to drive home at night after work, and I never sleep until she gets home. So she finishes work a lot of times 12 o'clock, and I'm exhausted by 10. I cannot sleep until she's at the house.
Yeah, no.
And even when she's driving, the car must be locked. If you can't have a breakdown, you'll have to drive with a flat tire. There's this constant awareness. So yes, statistically it's more dangerous, but like you say, how many crimes happens over here where I've heard of stories, someone was raped, someone was murdered, but they didn't steal anything. You know what I mean? So it's almost like a...
No, it is.
And I always say to people, they'll say, yeah, but maybe crime is bad because you're becoming older, so you're actually reading it. I'm like, how many people do you know that's been murdered? And I know a few.
So it's becoming bad just because you read about it?
Yeah, well, that's what they told me. They told me that in Poland. They were like, Polish people are quite interesting in that way. They try to have a competition with you. It's like, no, but Poland is equally as dangerous. I'm like, and I said, like, how many people do you know that got murdered?
Yeah.
No one?
No one, yeah.
I know a few. So let's...
Yeah. But also I think for them, they can't believe it. In the sense that you still choose to live in South Africa, even though it's that bad. It can't be that bad.
Yeah.
Because exactly like you said, our reference points are so different.
Yeah.
That is like...
It's like when you drive to Muizenberg from Stellenbosch. Like you get to this point where I'm like, this is an amazing place to stop and take pictures.
No.
And it's like a private beach almost. It's like it's the last place in the world that you want to stop.
But that's the thing, it's a private beach because... It's like a private beach because nobody dares to stop there.
And I'm sure a lot of tourists will be like, oh, look how amazing this is. Let's stop and take a picture.
And it is a beautiful beach, but but no.
Yeah. No. I want to just ask you to finish off the communist thing. Almost like Pablo Escobar that was like killed at the end of his reign. Yeah. Like your president got executed with his wife. Was that like... did that help you to let go a little bit of communism or feel like some sort of retribution? Also because it wasn't a long trial afterwards, that was like few years. It was a bit like he tried to run away, we caught him, we executed him, and now we can maybe like try to move on. Was there some sense of that in the country? Or?
I think up to a certain point, yes. Also, I think from a different point of view, they didn't know what to do with him, with them, in the sense that it was so bad at that stage, and already the street movement have started, and then these are some things that we found out later on, is that they wanted to bring in military, but then those guys got shot. So there were a lot of things that we as the population, we were not aware of. There is still this myth, but maybe it's not a myth, that they brought people from outside to try to contain the street movement and the revolt.
Because I saw that there's a big rebellion that went on towards the end.
Yes.
People just
couldn't take it anymore.
It's like, listen, he had a speech, and it was like people started going crazy.
Which they never expected, because it never happened before.
Is it the responsibility of the people to change governments? Because I know in South Africa everyone's complaining. And it's like, but are you getting involved in any shape, form or way? So was it international politics that changed politics within Romania, or was it the combination of what the people did with international? Like, how do you change political systems?
I think...
Because South Africa, I think it was about survival of our economy that helped us to become democratic. They started fearing like all the sanctions against us, and then I think Mr. Evie de Klerk was a bit like, we're going down a wrong direction. Maybe there was some morals involved. It's always difficult in politics with that. So how do you change because I know Ukraine went also through some very tough times this last few years.
I think it was the right there were the right international circumstances. The Berlin Wall just fell in October. There was already a strong movement towards the end of communism. I don't know if you remember or if your listener know about perestroika in the former USSR with Mikhail Gorbachev. It didn't mean that the end of the communism, but it already started. I think they also realized that
we
this
can't
is
continue
not going
like this.
to continue like this. Then there were already coming, in fact, from the West, there were different countries that had a bit more of quiet transition, like in the former Czechoslovakia, where the president of the party and of the country resigned. So there was like almost like a wave coming, but those were countries that were doing well, in the sense that people had food, people were not under such a tight grip.
It wasn't secret police.
I'm pretty sure it was everywhere, but not as much as in
the
in
interrogations,
Romania. Exactly, maybe. But then, as it was coming, in fact, from the West, in Romania, it started from the west of the country as well. And I think that big discourse or meeting that they had, where people started becoming, very agitated. I think it was almost like a knee-jerk reaction, in the sense that, no, everything is fine, please, people, don't worry, these are lies that you hear, and then the people just kind of, it just blew up. It's like, no.
Bullshit.
It's bullshit. We know there are people dying in the west of the country because you sent the secret police to just stop them. So I think it really turned into a revolt.
So international community changing is the start.
Yes, but there was the right
through is
and it
the
was
rebellion.
The right time. Yes, and it was the right time, and people had enough.
Because, like, if you study politics, then they talk about civil society, and civil society is how can the civilians of the country become involved in some sort of political fashion. And I find that in South Africa, everyone has an opinion, but no one is involved in any shape or form. And I know that we had a couple of farm murders, and I think 2 years ago they, towards Elsenburg, the N1, they blocked it all off. And then it was amazing how this one day everyone did it. There's a couple of times where people protested on the N2 or something.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's got to happen more. And I don't like, but I love the example of black people in America that fighted for their individual rights. And unfortunately, when you fight government systems, there is a lot of pain involved. But if you don't sacrifice, you won't achieve. And I find in South Africa, very few people want to become involved in any way.
But I think let's not be naive. There were other interests at play as well.
That changed
everything.
So even with the rebellion from the people.
Exactly. So I mean, that's why I think we can't be naive. That was, there was a tipping point.
Yeah.
Because people just had enough.
Yeah.
The government turned violent against them. So then violence, turned into more violence. But then I think that I don't know what would have happened if he would have resigned. But because he tried to run away, it was the perfect reason to kind of go and grab him and, But also I think people were afraid that if he was still alive, somebody will try to kind of go back to the way it was, because in a way he was almost like not a symbol, but in the sense that, we have now a new democratic government, but this guy is still there, almost like like a gray eminence, like floating around. So it was like, it was...
It's like a genie in a bottle.
Exactly.
It can come out at any time.
Exactly. So it's like, no, we just need to kind of have a clean cut, and it's like really... I think if...
And firearms, like... Nothing was available anywhere, so the rebellion people couldn't have firearms in any shape or form of protecting yourself.
No.
Because this is something that's also happening in South Africa slowly, where you can't have firearms, you have a certain amount of bullets.
Ooh.
And I've been watching quite a lot of discourse in America where the amendment, I don't know if it's a first, second amendment, that you have a right to protect yourself.
Arms, yeah.
And I always thought they were full of shit, but I have experienced a couple of things where the government does what they want to do with no regard for the civilization. And I'm like, but how many times will you actually have to protect yourself? But it is just that feeling of if something happens, I can protect myself.
Yeah, but it depends on how you grew up. For us, guns are not the way to go. Like, for example, recently there have been some protests in Romania, and you would not expect the government to shoot at you.
Yeah.
Those are war conditions in the sense that you lived in UK, and other countries in Europe as well. They have a specific branch of police. Most of countries police. I'm thinking other countries might be military, which is for crowd control.
Yeah.
You do not send your own army against your people. That is just not done. So crowd control is crowd control. They have their own ways of doing it. They use rubber bullets. They use tear gas, or if it really gets bad. But you do not
on your own people.
You don't shoot on your own people. And that's why, for me, what happened at the end of the communist regime is not a justification for Romanians to have guns. It was a revolt. It was civil unrest. It wasn't. It would have been even much worse if the people also had guns. I mean, as I said, but we come from a different background in which, having a gun in the house is not normal.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
In a way,
I grew up different from that.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, it's just because I would like to have. I don't have a gun, but I would love to have one because it would make me feel very safe.
Why?
Because of the type of crime that we have here.
But do you think that means that you would have to have your gun all the time with you?
Yeah, I would love to have a gun with me all the time. Like every single, like sleep next to it. As soon as I leave the house, have it on me. I would just feel safer in that way. Okay. And there's some people, they just live like that. It's like it's almost like martial arts. The last form of martial arts is actually using the skills that you were taught. There's
true.
And for me, it's the same with the gun. It's just, I had a situation where I walked my dogs the other day, and there's these dogs called a boerboel or a mastiff, and they're basically crazy dogs. And they
big.
I think these ones were like 80, 90 kilograms. And they came across, and there was this moment of a face-off. And I'm like, they're about to kill my dogs. And if I try to get involved, I'm dying today. There's nothing I can do. And I was just like, if I had my gun or a gun on me, I would feel safe. I could actually get involved in some fashion. And I don't know. But that's just my personal opinion. Everyone will be a bit different.
No, of course. But because I have to tell you what freaked me out, it was a couple of years ago. I went to get some food for lunch, and there's this oldish guy, maybe in his early 60s, wearing the typical farmer uniform.
PT shorts.
The shorts and the two-colored top, with his gun at his belt in a shop. Why?
Yeah.
You came to buy groceries.
Yeah.
Why?
I believe it should be hidden. Like, no one should see that you're carrying. And there is ways to do that. I just think that's like a respectful way to go about it. But like, everyone's different,
Oh, of course.
It's like when I walk in the mountain, I always have a walking stick. And my wife loves to tease me. She's like, you think you look cool with your walking stick. I'm like, listen, I've come across a few snakes. And the dog sometimes catches cobras. And they bring it to me. And the one nearly... So I'm like, having a stick with me, it's a form of 1% of the time I will need it. And if I have it on me, I'm ready to use it. Because you just don't know when it's going to happen.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, like you said, different people have different opinions, but the whole thing, for example, with the guns is, I don't know.
I believe that there should be very strict way of a process to get it, like psychological analysis.
But also, like you say, you're very you know, you're right in the sense that it will make you feel more comfortable. But for you, it's a form of almost like to make you more, you know, calm, more at ease. But for other people, it's a way of be even more aggressive.
Yeah, well, it's the same like martial arts. Like martial arts should give you peace of mind that I can protect myself. It shouldn't be a form of there's conflict, I have an opportunity to use my martial arts now. It's like, so I'm sure some people, like there are a lot of stories of people learn jiu-jitsu or karate or whatever, and then it's like they get into a lot of fights suddenly because it's like, fuck, I can use it. Where a lot of people, they never get into anything. And it's just, I'm sure it's the same with guns, where you have it and then finally an opportunity presents itself to use it and you've trained for it. But it's always like, how can I avoid this whole situation without using the gun? Like, but I've had in Stellenbosch, I've had 3 taxis drive into me in the last 2 years, and the one time I tried to get the registration and stuff, and I was terrified. It was right next to Kayamandi. It was in the neighborhood of, and this guy, the way he was looking at me, so I got out with my phone and I took a picture of his license disc. But I couldn't talk to this guy, and I was absolutely terrified. And I'm like, I don't have money to like fix my car. I reported him at the police, and this has now been a year and a half, and I haven't made any contact with me, the police. And I'm like, some situations like that. Well, what if he drove into me and my car's broken and now I'm stuck there? You know, so there's in that situation, there would just be a little bit like. But then again, if you only have 12 bullets on you, like, I feel like I should have a gun with like just magazines.
But anyway, the other thing is like, so where do you stop?
Where do you stop? So anyway, I didn't think we're going to go into this direction. So it's just talking about guns at fucking 1 o'clock on a Saturday. Anyway.
You know, you want guns, I have chemistry. I have chemistry and I'm not afraid to use it.
Yeah, sarin gas, let's go.
Oh no, I was thinking more like to make Guyver the shit out of this.
Are you a doctor, professor, or what do you classified as? What, like, where did you... classify? Like, you're at Stellenbosch University.
I'm at Stellenbosch University. I have a doctorate in analytical chemistry. A doctorate, this has to do with doing your PhD. Professorship is an academic level, basically.
Are you proud that you're not the academic level of a professor? Because it's more interesting.
No. I am just a researcher. Unfortunately, I don't think at this rate I will ever be a professor.
Do you have aspiration to become?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. It's seen in academia, at least in a lot of countries, as a recognition of your
body of work,
achievement. But also then the other part is this comes with a higher salary. So then it doesn't matter if you are on the list for promotion. If the faculty says, sorry, we don't have money for this, they're not going to give you a specific title only on paper. They have to, come up with the goods as well. They have to put the money where exactly. So, but I mean that doesn't. The thing is, of course, the higher up you are in the hierarchy, the more weight you pull. But the good thing in academia is that, or in research, especially when it has to do with academia, is that there is quite a lot of freedom of doing or pursuing what you want. So you don't have to be a professor in order to do a lot of the things that you want. But of course, the lower that you are, the more people shit on your head.
Because you spoke about this last time, because we spoke about what do you find, or what like what do we find interesting with South African culture? South African culture is difficult because we have 11 languages.
Yeah.
We have so many different official races, and then even you have the class system within it, and then. But the one thing that you said, because of your age, you can't have a certain opinion, and then suddenly 10 years later you have exactly the same opinion, but now it carries more weight.
Exactly.
Is that a South African thing, or is that in many countries?
No, that is in many countries, but I think it comes from a very traditional way of looking at, who your elders are, and you should shut up and wait for your turn. Even that turn might come only in 10 years time.
Yeah.
But again, I'm very rebellious from this point of view, and I blame it on my family again, not necessarily on my mother.
What, the rebelliousness?
Yes, because I come from a family where I was the youngest for a very long time, and the next in age were basically my parents. So I was like really the new generation in this in our family nucleus, let's say. So I spent many Sunday lunches with aunts and uncles that they were all, I was 5 years old and they were in their 50s. And so from this point of view, I was taught not to respect the age. In the sense that if you respect the person, you respect them for who they are and what they say and what they do. But age, I mean, you can be smart and small, and you can be idiot and old. So that's why I never had an issue expressing my opinion. For me, the fact that you're older than me is like, yes, you survived more years than I did.
Yeah. Can I be a little bit controversial? This is a very sensitive topic. It's like a lot of conservative people are religious, no? And a lot of religious people or the conservative people focus on this age thing. But then it's like Jesus was very young when he started talking about all these ideas. So isn't it like we should allow people to speak at any age?
What kind of stuff is this?
Contradictory to the whole religion.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, but now, as I said, I got to the age where, not that I cared 10 years ago either, but now I'm like, now you really can't make me shut up.
And where did you obtain your doctorate?
Here in Stellenbosch.
Stellenbosch University.
Yeah.
And in chemical...
analytical chemistry.
But you're in the wine industry?
Not in the industry per se. I work with wine, so I'm at the Department of Viticulture and Enology.
Do you drink wine?
Yes.
Do you like it?
Yes, depending on how big the hangover is.
Depending on which day of the week we talk to each other.
Yeah, let's put it like this. It's not unheard of that, walk into my office and there's a bottle of wine laying around.
Yeah, but it's part of your job.
It is part of my job.
But like you won't say like you like Sauvignon Blanc or Chenin Blanc. It would be like from this farm I like their Sauvignon Blanc.
I'm not such a snobbish drinker.
Okay.
I have my favorites, but I'm always keen to try new things. So I can say, let's say, as a white wine, I like Chenin Blanc. As a red wine, I like Shiraz, but it's not. Yeah, luckily through my work, I was exposed to quite a lot of different things that as a normal consumer, I would maybe not be that adventurous.
Yeah.
But because we are exposed through the nature of the work to a lot of things, then I am a bit more open than I was, let's say, when I just started working there.
And are you involved in any form in the farming that they do, and less pesticide?
No,
let's get the ground a bit healthier.
Listen, it depends on the projects that we're doing. So usually the idea is that if you try a new technology or a new technique or a new approach, you have to compare it to what was there before. So let's say, like you said, okay, let's use less pesticides, but you need to say, okay, how does this translate into a wine or into product compared to the normal way of doing things. So unfortunately, and I'm citing one of the big names who will mean nothing for your listeners, but a professor in Spain who says he's the biggest whore he's ever met, because he's going to do the work that other people are willing to pay him for. So the idea is, yes, we come up with projects, but somebody has to give us money to do it. So it doesn't matter sometimes what we want to do if there's nobody to put up the finances. It's just an idea. So there's always this back and forth with the industries, like they have certain problems that we can possibly solve, but then they also have to pay us in order to do the work. But now we have to express them in a scientific way and, you know, do a project. So it's a bit of we have a lot of work to do. There's a lot of problems to be solved. It's not a problem from that point of view, but it's always a bit of a negotiation of what can you do, how do you do it, what does it mean. We have this thing that, I mean, academia is seen as an ivory tower, but maybe in some fields more than others, because the work that we do is much more applied. While if you do theoretical physics, maybe people are not that easy to see the direct applications. While for us, I mean, you know, analytical chemistry is very finicky in the sense that you have to be very precise and you have to be very accurate, and it's very clean. And then since I started working at the department, I had to go and spray vineyards, crawl under the vines, you know, stomp my feet to avoid the snakes. So this beautiful image of, you know, a perfectly, you know, made up, very clean, using instruments that cost millions. And then I have under my desk, I have like gumboots and so, I mean, it was still something stupid. Like we were making wine a couple of years ago, and one of my students comes running, it's like, the wine is finished, we need to press. But now it was one of the very few days when I was wearing a skirt. So I had to go and I lifted my skirt and we just went and we pressed the wine, because what can you do? It doesn't wait for you. It's like, oh no, I'll do it tomorrow, I will wear different clothes tomorrow. So it's like, yes, glamorous image versus, you know, showing up at meetings in gumboots and with grape snot on you because you just pressed and you got sprayed all over. It's like, but it's fun.
Do you love it?
Yes.
Quick question: in your background, can you have a educated opinion about Breaking Bad?
I didn't like the series.
But do you understand what he was trying to accomplish? All the equipment he's using, and so that's part of what.
I mean, let's put it
your
like
industry,
this.
almost like your research or your background.
No, not really. Let's put it like this: we learn the fundamentals. We don't get taught how to do those things. But if you see, like, I still remember the first couple of episodes that I watched. Like, you know, he sees the process and says, you're not doing it properly, because there are specific ways. It's like being a chef and watching somebody that has only read how to fry an egg, and you give like your best impression of by reading it how it should be done, and then here comes the chef and is like, okay, let me show you how it's done. Still an egg, still a frying pan, you know, still some oil or butter, but this is how I can make it look, and this is how you can make it look. I still remember, you know, when his product was too pure. Yes, because he was doing it properly. You know, it's like
the right equipment.
Because the equipment it wasn't a problem. It's just you need to know how to read and execute the recipe. So
do you know if the recipe was correct?
I wouldn't know
because
that.
If you need financing or funding for your research, like if anyone's listening, we can organize some funding right now.
Don't do drugs, rather invest in wine.
Cool. No. And I'm gonna wrap it up because what I'm trying to accomplish is shorter podcasts.
Okay.
Because a lot of mine has been 2 to 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And I think what happens is a lot of these podcasts are designed that you watch it in batches. I don't expect people to sit an hour and a half and listen or watch. But I think a lot of people are like, they see that it's 2 hours and they just don't want to play, because I'm like, I don't have 2 hours now.
I can understand
so
that.
I think if it's like shorter, then like, okay, maybe, because the last one was an hour. And I think a lot of people are like, oh, I can listen to an hour.
I can dedicate that
time. But I'm
time.
like, just break it up. You know, especially public transport. I really miss public transport. Because I listen to a lot of podcast audio. And it's nice on a bus or a train or a tram. I miss trams. Like they're like really special for me. And because I can sit and I can just focus. Where in South Africa or like where we live, I always have to be on the lookout for either taxis or people not using indicators, and
idiot
it's
drivers.
So it's quite difficult here to use it in transport. And I think that's the perfect time to do it. And if anyone's listening, I just got my stuff registered on all the websites. I think the last one is iTunes, but everything is now on Stitcher, SoundCloud. So if you want to do the audio and just listen to that, that is available.
That's cool.
Because not everyone wants to watch. I like to watch podcasts.
Yeah, but I prefer to listen.
The audio.
Yes.
I did I'd listened to one of Freddie's. Is yours out on Freddie?
Yes.
Okay. I didn't listen to that, but I did listen to my other friend, this yogi guy that just came out a week or two ago on Freddie, and I had to do some computer work, and it's actually quite nice to listen to a podcast.
Yeah, depending on what
on
you're busy with.
certain type of computer work. It was a lot of copy, paste, insert pictures, and, you know, a few headings. It wasn't like...
I listen to podcasts while I fold laundry and wash dishes.
Exactly, and sweeping the floor.
Exactly.
Are you happy in South Africa? That's a difficult question. Are you happy as a person? And then are you happy in South Africa?
What is satisfaction is not in my nature.
Maybe some people will say, like Dracula. What's your opinion on that stuff?
Cool. Well, it brings tourism.
Is that something that's talked about a lot, or?
No, not really. But I mean, we accepted it as part of our, tourism pitch.
Yeah.
So.
But you don't believe in any of that?
Oh man, of course not. I'm a scientist.
I spoke to a pastor yesterday, and he said that he deals with a lot of interesting people, and he dealt with somebody a while ago, and this guy 100% believed that he's a vampire, and he's very believable. And he's like, I'm 500 years old.
Oh, good for him.
Stuff. But
fascinating.
Are you enjoying Stellenbosch,
yes.
Cape, Western Cape?
Yeah, I would not move away from here, or let's put like this: if I was moving away from here, I would move all the way, let's say, back to Europe, But for South Africa, for me, this is the.
So for Europeans, anyone listening, you would recommend moving to Stellenbosch, Cape Town, Western Cape.
Yes.
The mountains, the ocean,
mountains, the wine.
it's worth it.
So no, definitely, or at least, guys, come and visit. It's well worth it.
And it is dangerous, but I've lived here 34 years minus the 6 in Europe. I'm a bit more street smart than my brothers.
Is it?
I'm a bit more dodgy than them. So I've been lucky that I've avoided crime my whole life.
Yeah.
Whereas everyone else got caught in it. But you can come here for a 3-month holiday and experience nothing. If you're just a little bit clever.
No, of course. No. And also, there's a lot of tourists coming and nothing has happened to them. It's not a...
And the lifestyle, you like it? The climate, the culture, the people, the Afrikaans, English, coloured, Xhosa. Do you find that interesting? Is that a bit of a culture shock?
The thing is, no, culture shock, no. But the truth is, Stellenbosch, being the way it is, we are a bit cocooned in the sense that it is a mostly white community,
middle upper class,
and it has a specific lifestyle that is anyway linked, in fact, a lot with the university, and you would see that anywhere in the world where a small town is basically as big or as small as the university that is, attached to it. I don't know. It's in fact not such a diverse environment for me, but it has to do with your social circle and.
I find Stellenbosch very different than most people because I was a musician. I'm not anymore. Started living in the real world, but I played African drums, djembes.
Okay.
And my mentor teacher was Senegalese. And in high school, I started hanging out with Senegalese, French people because of the drum groups. I had Rastafari and Muslim people. I worked in restaurants,
but you see, that's why I'm saying it depends on.
And now with my business, my business is trying to train people from townships, trying to get into work. So I spend so much time with these people, and I forget that not everyone has that.
Now, on the other hand, I mean, if you think about it, even where I work, this particular, how can I say, activity is traditionally linked to white South African men. But it is becoming much more diversified now.
How many black owners of farms do we have in this area?
Not many. But it's not only about the owners, it's also about sometimes really the people making the decision that work there, because you don't have to necessarily be the owner. To be the winemaker, for example.
How many black winemakers do we have in this area?
I can't tell you.
Have you met any?
Yes.
Okay,
no,
they
of
are.
course, I mean, they're also. I mean, if you look at the students that go through our course, there are.
And women are also now winemakers.
Of course.
But 10, 20 years ago?
Oh, I don't know.
But
I remember 10, 20 years ago. I mean, it's changing, but don't worry. Apparently, in other countries, is just as bad. Like apparently, for example, in Italy, traditionally, if you're a woman, you don't even
I would think it'd be a very interesting place to be a woman is Italy.
Why?
Well, just because the men have such a chauvinistic stereotype. I'm like, you really have to like the way that you see movies. It's also like the mom has quite an important part, but it's also.
I don't know. I hope that it has changed. I really hope so.
I don't want to compare this now to The Godfather, like the way.
That was not exactly, last year. So.
No, but I find culture fascinating, and I spend a lot of time with different cultures, and. I'm going to try to get my Estonian friend via Skype because when we lived in Poland, that whole Crimea thing was happening. And Poland is like a little bit between the missiles that would fly over from Germany and Russia. And he had this fear suddenly. He's like, my apartment doesn't have a bomb shelter. And he got like this anxiety. He's like, when I grew up in Estonia, we all had bomb shelters during the 80s. And he's like, the amount of times that he had to go to like a bomb shelter. And I'm like, I find it interesting. Different cultures grow up differently and all of those
they get shaped by.
And then if you immerse yourself in that culture, like he taught me to sit in a sauna, cold shower, all of those type of things.
Well, live and learn.
Yeah, but I think we're on 100 minutes, so we're hour and a half. Thank you.
No, thank you so much.
There might be some people that listened and they said, why didn't I go deeper and more specific into some topics? And I'll just tell them to go fuck themselves, because I also had a military guy on a couple of months ago.
I remember, but it was an Afrikaans.
It was an Afrikaans.
Unfortunately for me.
And everyone wants to hear, have you killed someone? Was any of your friends killed? Did you have to pick up the fucking lungs from somebody that fell out? And I'm like, that's very disrespectful questions. And so it's not like an expose where I want to do that. And some people might say, but I want to hear the gory stuff about communism. It's like, go watch a movie, go read about it. It is out there. It's about a little bit more of the emotion about that era.
Well, I have to tell you thank you, because you made me feel quite comfortable to even talk about certain things that I was a bit not afraid, but thinking beforehand about them. Because I sometimes have quite an emotional reaction to some memories, but thank you for not pushing too hard or too far, because it's, as I said, I am quite separate from it now, because it happened so many years ago, but I get like memories that were pushed aside at some point, and they just come back, and sometimes it's quite difficult to deal with them.
Plus, I don't know if I'm the safest environment to go there. Like, I'm like on camera, on audio, I think you should only go so deep. Like, plus, do you really trust this guy to tell them all that stuff? So, but the only thing, I think the reason why I'm able to do that is because I've gone through certain life experiences, and I understand that going there is important for me.
But it also can be difficult.
It's super difficult. Like, I've gone through some stuff recently where I had to look at my childhood, and it's not like I was molested or fucking anything bad, but some of the stuff, the way I grew up, was difficult for me, and it really shaped who I am. But some stuff that's difficult, I have to slowly work for many years until I can really go there.
But it will help you sometimes understand, for example, your decisions, or the way you react to certain things.
The thing I've been focusing on this last month is, why am I such a big rebel? And I find it difficult. Because whenever something happens, my automatic response is like Che Guevara, like, let's go against this, like, let's fight it. And if somebody pushes,
you're my kind of people.
If somebody pushes this hard, I'm gonna try and push. It's like an arm wrestling match, and I'm like, where other people are just like, just let it happen. Why are you emotionally involved in almost all your decisions? And it's like, I have a lot of respect for myself for being a rebel. But it does make me tired sometimes. And I want to understand at least why.
Yeah.
And I have figured it out now because of a very conservative, traditional, religious upbringing. And this whole thing of be seen, not heard. There is this, you are judged based on the way you look, as opposed to, even now, like some people judge me based on what I look like, even now, in certain circles and communities. Some people judge me based on swear words as opposed to the actual message, what I'm saying. But again, I move in a lot of different circles. But especially as a kid growing up,
I mean, did I swear today at all?
I don't think you did.
I am so well behaved today.
Yeah. I have to really focus hard on...
Because I'm a bit of a potty mouth, in fact.
You were perfect today. But
a lady.
But yeah, that's basically... So I don't know. I just find psychology, the spirit, the mind, the body, everything is very interesting. And you went on Freddie's podcast. I have to listen to that. So anyone listening, Freddie, he was here twice. Go listen to his podcast called Meet Me in the Field, Freddie van Rensburg. What did you guys discuss in your one day? And you were on another podcast. What's the lady's name? The wine one?
Amanda, Wine for Me.
Wine for Me from Amanda.
Yeah.
Available on...
It is, I think...
Just search Wine for Me, Amanda. What was your topic with Freddie?
Well, I mean, I think he tried to go on more a spiritual journey, but we ended up talking about communism, funny enough, for quite a long time.
Okay.
So, but I mean, I'm friends with him for a while, so it was good that my first, dipping my toes in this was with him, because I felt really comfortable with him and, like with a friend. So.
Yeah. See, like my research into my spirit this last month, it's the first time in 4 years that I could start grieving for my brother that died, for example. So it seems that for 4 years I wasn't ready to go there. And then this last month, and I wasn't prepared for it. Like, and even the
Surprise.
research that I did in my childhood, it was like not about my brother. And I'm like, and suddenly, because I went into
Something
this channel,
clicked.
and again, I don't think this is the perfect forum for anyone to experience that suddenly.
No, of course.
But yeah.
You're a better person for it? You grew up?
No, definitely. I feel amazing. Like,
That's
it's been a fucking difficult 6 weeks. Really difficult, but I feel amazing. So,
Well done.
thank you. Let's finish there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. It's been awesome.
My pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Perfect.